Hi everybody, and a warm welcome back to MapleLeaf Customs in Switzerland. I'm Andrew, and on the bench today is a 1:24 scale 1979 Ford F-150 custom pickup truck. This comes from the MotorMax Diecast company in a Golf livery. I got it online from Amazon exactly a year ago, right after finishing my last Hoonigan build in a similar scale size. I'm going to convert this one into Ken Block's Hoonitruck, as featured in the GYMKHANA TEN drifting video. It'll be my third Ken Block vehicle. We lost him too early, and I miss him and his exploits. Although I'm starting with a full die-cast truck, I'm going to chop this one up pretty good because the Hoonitruck, even though it's a Ford F-150, is much lower, much wider, and a little bit shorter than the regular one that I've got in hand right now. But this will be my starting point. Every casting in a 1:24 scale size affords a little bit more detail, and this has lots of pieces in it that are of interest, but probably not all going to get used in this conversion build. One of the nice things is they're always held together by screws, so there's no drilling out involved in this. This has a super long one-piece plastic chassis, large scale wheels, nicely detailed hubs on there, plastic bumpers front and back. I'm going to retain the cab, this middle section, and therefore I'll work with this interior as well, but it's going to be heavily modified. There's the dash and steering wheel. I'll be adding a big drift brake. I use a hot soldering iron to remove any pieces like the front grille and the headlights and the rear view mirror that are affixed with plastic. I just melt it away. But in order to separate the cab from the bed, I had to get a burr tool out and grind down some hard plastic that was holding them. All the little bits go into a Ziploc baggie, and I catalog these and toss them all into the boneyard of miscellaneous parts. Let's have a look at the Hoonitruck from the Hoonigan YouTube channel. It's a 77 Ford F-150, as you know, and you can see the stance and all the different dimensions here quite apparently. It's made for drifting and has been heavily modified. And you can read all about the specs online. I've left some links in the description if you want to further educate yourself. It's quite the beast. In order to come as close as possible, I'm going to do some 3D printing. I constructed much of this from the fenders and the tailgate and spoiler and the internal parts of the bed. Here are some custom wheels. If you've never seen a 3D printer in action, this is what it looks like coming off of the build plate. Those are all supports that hold it in place. This one was about a 3-hour print job. I first have to separate the resin printed parts from the build plate. I use a water-soluble resin. What doesn't get used gets strained and poured back into the bottle for the next project. It's not deadly stuff, but I still wear gloves for safety whenever I handle this. And now the laborious process of cutting away these supports to isolate just the printed pieces. I use an X-Acto knife to pick away some of the smaller fine ends of the supports that were holding this. And then everything has to go into the curing box for about 10 minutes or so. Then it's ready to work on. Here's the Hoonigan Mustang that I did a year ago in a similar fashion, starting with a diecast model, adding 3D printed parts, and I did a mini-me version too, that I gave to a family member. Lots of good stuff coming up soon on MapleLeaf Customs as we wrap up 2024, so I hope you'll bookmark my channel, give this video a like if this is your kind of a thing, and it would be a wonderful Christmas gift if you'd become the newest subscriber and follower of my hobby craftings from Switzerland. Thanks for doing that. In order to fit the 3D printed parts onto the original die cast, I had to do some body modifications with a variety of different tools. Now you can see the cab's been well chopped up with the hood missing. That's going to fit the 3D printed front end with the exposed engine parts. And the rear bed, I actually did a separate printing of just the bed, and I'll add the internal pieces individually. These are a nice set of wheels. They came out beautifully. Apple Buddy is my go-to media of choice when it comes to joining parts together in this hobby. Thanks to Tom from Spork Syndicate for sending this to me in a mail call. I wish it came in a bigger size so it would last longer. I use it all the time. Did you know that the undercarriage of the Hoonitruck is totally exposed like this? There's no chassis underneath it, so I need to build a frame. I'm using a couple of lengths of styrene in this H shape. Marked out some measurements, cut it halfway through so that I can bend this slightly. To fit the body lines of the Hoonitruck like that. It's surprisingly strong and rigid when it's all finished, and that important first step in the bed is complete. I designed this double fan assembly and the plumbing that goes with it. I'll do a dry fit first. Looks to be just about right. A couple of clips and snips. I make sure there's no problem in fitting the scratch-built frame beneath it. Okay, that's good. Out comes the fan for a silver base coat. And on top of that, I hand brush some matte black to match the original Hoonitruck. Lots of Google images to help me on these steps. This is my gas tank, also in a matte black. That'll go closer to the back of the bed. Now that's glued in place, and it's starting to take shape. This has been a real fun part of the project for me. Here's the rear axle and drivetrain, control arms. Lots of jazz involved in that one. And I've put most everything together, did a little bit of a wiring harness as well. I'll add some coils in there before it's all done. I like the spoiler in the back. I gave that a shot of silver too. And now I turn my attention to the interior detail. I cut away part of the bench seat, added a Spork bucket seat. This piece of styrene rod gets shaped and painted and turns into a scratch-built fire extinguisher. I added the drift brake. The seat belts are made from red electrical tape, and I did a little detail on the dash and steering wheel. Let's go hill climbing. If that whet your appetite, then please follow the link for this week's community shoutout to the Hoonigan YouTube channel. You can find all of Ken Block's drifting videos there, which many of us have come to be big fans of. A big part of the Hoonigan fleet of vehicles is the decal work that gives them their instant identification, so I embark on the very enjoyable process. This took me most of a day, because I often had to lay down a ghost white decal first and then the color ones on top. But piece by piece it started to come together and take on the look that we're all familiar with. You'll notice this kind of a lightning camouflage that goes on top of the black. Then I had to position those in several different pieces. That was tricky because of the body contours. Monster Energy is one of the big sponsors, as is Pennzoil, and you'll see Toyo tires all over the Hoonitruck. This is great fun. Up front, I had to hand paint the exposed engine parts, including the twin turbos, in the hood shaker. Now for the tire detail. 3D printed, as you saw. Matte black paint goes down first, and when that's all set, I use this stencil cutout and spray some copper just on the rims. It's a pretty easy process when you do it that way, and they came out looking exactly like the originals. I think on this model they're 30 millimeters. I put some minuscule logo decals on these too. Toyo tires, big and bold. Wow, that's a perfect replica. Hand painting the taillights in the back. Toyo tires up front on both doors. Ford Put one of my own Swiss Tune stickers on there. And the back window of the cab has lots of tiny sponsor signage. Just about finished. To put the two halves together, I used some two-part epoxy that I got at the dollar store on my last trip to Canada. It sets up in about 5 minutes. And here's a PSA from the Hoonigan people. Let's have a closer look. Looks pretty big now that the two halves are joined together, doesn't it? And I think the overall picture is smashing. Lots of fine detail, both from 3D printing and some scratch building on my part. The details are tiny on this one, and plentiful. Everyone's going to spot something different. I love the wheels. It's a good roller, by the way. Number 43 on the roof, and I added Ken Block's signature. That's not part of the original Hoonitruck, but part of my tribute to him. Once again, even though I started with a Ford F-150, you can see it's lowered right down to the ground, much wider with the fender flares and a little bit shorter than the original. It's the perfect drift truck. And it's a wicked beast. I especially like the detail in the bed. Here's the Hoonitruck together with my 64.5 Mustang Hoonigan. Thanks for visiting my channel today. I hope you enjoyed this and that you'll leave a respectful comment below. Come on back soon and often. It's coffee time.